So the massive train derailment and chemical spill in Ohio that's being covered up is finally starting to get some national coverage. And what a surprise, there were more toxic chemicals on the train that derailed in Ohio than originally reported. But Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, whose job it is to make sure that interstate commerce transportation systems like railroads are functioning and safe, doesn't care. Instead, he is concerned that there are too many white people who work construction jobs.
To work with your contractors, to work with your community colleges on building a workforce that reflects the community. We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that finally sees the project come to them, but everyone in the hard hats on that project looking like, doing the good paying jobs, don't look like they came from anywhere near the neighborhood.
Right.
Instead of leading an investigation into what happened or even acknowledging it, Pete's just having a gay old time as usual.
It's had its challenges.
Right.
If you look at what the American transportation systems have faced in the last 2 or 3 years, partly because of the pandemic, we've faced issues from container shipping to airline cancellations. Mm-hmm. Now we got balloons.
That's right.
We have an incompetent transportation secretary who was appointed to that position specifically as a diversity hire because she likes to stick things where they weren't designed to go. MSNBC's Joy Reid, the angry black woman, did a surprisingly in-depth report about what happened and what the concerns are. And then she, like the train, went off the rails.
The NTSB is still investigating the exact reason for the derailment, but they say it was likely caused by mechanical issues on one of the rail car axles. And while that investigation is taking place, there is renewed scrutiny on some of the deregulation that has left the industry vulnerable to these kinds of disasters, including the Trump administration's reversal of an Obama-era rule that required braking system upgrades for high-hazard trains hauling flammable liquids.
It was Donald Trump's fault. The train didn't need extra strong brakes. It just needed the wheels not to fall off. Remember when they blamed Donald Trump for hurricanes, too?
As Florence bears down on the Carolinas, a damning Washington Post editorial is calling President Trump, quote, complicit in this storm, not for failing to prepare, but for failing to address climate change. So senior political analyst John Avlon has more for us. What do you see, John?
That's right, Allie. It's so bad that according to 2 Harvard scientists, Trump's environmental policies could lead to an additional 80,000 unnecessary deaths every decade.
Okay. This is the network, by the way, that calls themselves the most trusted name in news. But for some actual accurate news, we're going to have to turn to a local Ohio affiliate to try to figure out what the heck is going on with this cover-up about the chemical spill.
Tonight, we know more about the chemicals that were on the train.
First News digital reporter Jen Rodriguez has been in the village today, taking a closer look at what else was on that train. She has those details and much more in our top story tonight at 6.
We now know 3 more chemicals that were on board the Norfolk Southern train that derailed here in East Palestine just over a week ago. And we're being told that some of those chemicals are dangerous.
We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
Caggiano says it's possible some of these chemicals could still be present in homes and on objects until you clean them thoroughly.
So there's a lot of what ifs, and we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
But the EPA would never lie about hazardous chemicals being in the air, right? Wait, what's this?
Been called a toxic soup of some of the most dangerous things you can inhale. Yet at the same time, the head of the EPA said the air at Ground Zero was safe in the days after 9/11. Today, that same person, former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, testified at a congressional hearing into the matter. But her claims were met with some serious opposition.
Her lies were exposed, I think is what you meant to say, because yes, the EPA lied about the air quality at Ground Zero after 9/11. And here, over 20 years later, it takes a former comedian, Jon Stewart, to try to do something to get these people the medical treatment that they needed. Maybe the reason that train derailed is because it wasn't properly maintained, because they didn't get any money from the Department of Transportation, because there were too many white people working on the railroad.
Where do you see these dollars for construction going, and what do you think it's going to do to Black and brown communities?
This is really important. We're going to create billions and billions of dollars in economic opportunity, and we have to make sure that happens equitably.
Equitably, that's a code word, meaning they don't want to help white people to the back of the bus.
So let me talk about two parts of that. The first is where the investments happen. Where are we going to fix the bridge? Where are we going to improve the road? Where are we going to lay the pipe?
And not in white communities, obviously.
We got to make sure we're doing that equitably, especially knowing that it was often in Black and brown communities that there was either a failure to invest and you didn't have a good road or transit system in a certain neighborhood, or the investment came through in the wrong way, like a highway dividing a Black neighborhood in two. There's been a lot of that in the American
and the interstate system was built to keep certain groups in and certain groups out. So it was built on a racist system, correct?
Yeah, often this wasn't just an act of neglect. Often this was a conscious choice. There is racism physically built into some of our highways. And that
Actually, I think the interstate highway system was developed for military reasons, in case equipment needed to be moved quickly to other parts of the state or the country in case there was another war. Pete Buttigieg got a lot of ridicule for those idiotic comments, and he did what all liberals do when faced with their absurdity. He doubled down.
As to where we target those dollars, I'm still surprised that some people were surprised when I pointed to the fact that if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and a Black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly Black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been in New York, was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices.
Yes, I'm sure it was a big conspiracy. In other news, this is how CNN lied by omission about the shooting at Michigan State University last night.
The campus police tweeted that the suspected gunman is, quote, a short male with a mask. That's basically all we know, but they do believe he has...
No, that's not all that we know. You're leaving out one of the key details that could potentially help identify this person at large, this dangerous psycho. The police also included in their description of the suspect that he's Black. So that's not basically all that you know. So this story, of course, will disappear from the networks. This is going down the memory hole immediately. Subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because you won't find analysis like this anywhere else, where we mock liberal lunatics, debunk fake news, confirm conspiracy facts, and expose celebrity scum. So stay tuned, and I will see you soon.